Welcome to the MICK Show, where I give you a laid-back look at the lives and businesses of today's most well-respected creatives. You'll learn key life lessons from culture's most prominent personalities, musicians, actors, athletes, and CEOs. So sit back, relax, and let's get into the show. This is the MICK Show. Welcome to the MICK Show. I'm your host, Mick, obviously, with MICK Show. And we have today a very, very special guest. We've had some amazing people in this season one of the MICK Show. And man, this guy, without this man's contributions to the culture, I probably wouldn't have a DJ career. A lot of people definitely wouldn't have MC careers. We wouldn't be wearing sneakers. I don't even know where the world would be without this gentleman. I present to you DMC. What's up, man?
What's happening, Mick? How are you?
I am great, man. Just sitting here in a hot office in a quarantine situation.
Pumping out the MICK Show.
Yeah, exactly, man. So listen, I have so many things I want to talk to you about, and I don't want to take up too much of your time
let's
today.
talk about them all. Let's talk about everything.
Everything. I love it. You have always been one of the nicest people in hip-hop culture since the first time I met you. Everyone says that about you. There's like three people they say it about. They say it about you, they say it about Jazzy Jeff, and they say it about, who was the other person they always say it about? Maybe they weren't that
really
nice. Yeah, I mean, you're just like the nicest dude. When you started, like you guys came out so counterculture at the time when hip hop was sequins and disco breaks and all that stuff, and you guys were like the first rap group ever to go against the grain, right?
Here's what happened: the best time in hip hop ever is the time before recorded hip hop.
Okay,
because think about it. We wasn't on records. It wasn't about being in the industry. It wasn't, you know what I'm saying? Something happened when it went on records. You know, and everybody always judged who's the greatest from recorded hip hop. No, we looking at hip hop. So here's what's remarkable. The first rappers, MCs, they were MCs that rapped. The first so-called rappers had nobody to look up to because they were the first.
Right.
So when they went into showbiz, they had nobody to idolize because they were the ones doing it all. They were the ones that we, Bronx, Queens, Manhattan, Brooklyn, Staten Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, we looked up to them. And who was the them? It was the DJs, Kool Herc, Charlie Chase, Tony Tone, Grandmaster Flash, Grand Wizard Theodore, all the DJ Easy Lee, Breakout Baron. We looked up to them. We looked up to Mel. We looked up to Kaz. We looked up to Mo D. We looked up to Spoonie G. We looked up to Lovebug Starsky. We looked up to Busy B. We looked up to the breakdancers.
Yeah.
We looked up to the graffiti writers. And that's all that it was. And even at the time, the gangbangers, the drug dealers, we looked up to those guys as our heroes and our superstars. When they got into showbiz, they didn't have nobody to play off of because they were the first one. But who was their idols? Parliament Funkadelic, the Rolling Stones, and Rick James. So because they went into showbiz, they changed their representation to fit that mold. So if you look at Zulu Nation, they dress like Parliament Funkadelic.
Yeah.
Look at Africa Bambaata's covers. Look at the Soul Sonic Force covers. They are Parliament Funkadelic. Look at Melly Melino. They are the Rolling Stones and Rick James. They are the funk bands and the rock stars mixed together. So for us, when we came into the business, Russell was always like, you need stage clothes, because that's what you do when you get into Hollywood. You put on your performing gear, your wardrobe. Yeah. He was like,
for tax purposes, because you can't write it off unless it's wardrobe. If it's clothes, that shit doesn't count. But every year, April 15th, I got that wardrobe column.
Right, I call it wardrobe, but it's just me going shopping. But when we came in, we said, we gonna figure it out, but we ain't wearing that stuff. If you look back at the flyers back in the days, before recorded rap sucks anyway, because it's business and it's a whole nother level. Melly Melinum used to wear sheepskins. Melly Melinum wore Martinets and Pumas and Adidas and Kangos and the gold medallions and all of that. They wore tracksuits, but when they got to showbiz, they did the showbiz thing. I gave the secret away. Run DMC's greatness, I said it on the record Adidas. We took the beat from the street and we put it on TV. We didn't invent it, but we came as we were. So when you saw Run DMC, you didn't see celebrities. You didn't see Stevie Wonder. You didn't see Parliament Funkadelic. You didn't see the Rolling Stones. You didn't see Liberace. You know what I'm saying? You didn't see Elton Flamboyant John. And it's not against that. When we came the same way At 18 years old on a record, we were dressing like we was dressing when we was 15 in the street. So you saw yourself. So once that happened, it was new to the world. Our fans knew it. That's why they gravitated to us so much. But the world was like, do you see these young kids with their fashion and their style? Man, that's been going on since 69 here in New York City. So for us, it was new to the world. Nobody had seen anybody come into show business as they were.
I love that. Do you see a lot of examples of that now as we fast forward 20, 30 years into the future with like artists or actors or like people just subjugating their true self in order to fit in? Or do you think it's gotten better as we've gotten, because you could argue like it's gotten better, but then you could argue Instagram every day is a big putting on your costumes for showbiz,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, everybody's putting up a front. Everybody's putting on a wardrobe. When you look at these new hip hop guys, they're saying that they're rock stars and it's new. It's new to their generation. Their generation is the past 15 years. Punk rock been doing what these guys were doing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? When you look at Little Pump with the tattoos and the punk rock did that. But the beautiful thing about punk rock didn't have to advertise us, tell us they were doing it. You know what I'm saying? When you saw Blondie, when you saw the Ramones, they never, even us, at the height of the great era of the 80s and going into the 90s, when we walked the red carpet at MTV, American Music Awards, or the Grammys, nobody ever asked us, who's your stylist? DMC, where'd you get your gold chain from? They would say it was always about us. It was always about, why are you young people making the music? You know what I'm saying? Our parents were secondary. Our parents were so powerful that it wasn't a promoted thing. It wasn't a look at me thing. It was so powerful because what we were doing felt good. What we were doing meant something. So that's why we got an Adidas deal. We got an Adidas deal because what we represented was so captivating and powerful. When we was putting on our jewelry, the only people that really put on jewelry to make it a statement back in those days were the drug dealers.
Wow.
These were poor motherfuckers, poor dudes that didn't have it. So it was the drug dealers wearing the gold chain. We just took that from them and tried to turn a stereotypical representation of young people from ghettos and lesser off communities as a statement. No, we have some wealth, but our wealth was never about our material things. I was with Killer Mike one time, and he was like, man, you guys totally blew us away by your presentation. But he said, what was cool about us, if you look at this generation and our generation, we were the same age. Like, I'm 56 now. So what I'm saying now, I was saying when I was 18. But Killer Mike said, yo, y'all were different, though, because we had Rolexes on, and we had the big old chains. But Killer Mike said, when y'all saw a picture of us, we was never pointing at the jewelry. Right. We never took pictures in front of the cars like the cars was worth more. Killer Mike said, y'all made us feel that we, the person under the clothes of the jewelry, was the most valuable thing. So all of that changed now. Everybody's doing what they're doing, whether it's on TV and videos and in the media, to fit into this mold of celebrity. We wasn't doing that. You know what I'm saying? We got on stage. We went back home and, we tried to feed the people in our neighborhoods, and we do a song and then we get off stage. We never had bodyguards around us. What the hell you got a body? If you got a bodyguard, you're saying you're above this culture and this community audience. So everything now has shown you that this is reality and this is culture and this is eternal and all this other shit is showbiz. So that's why people lose their wits and stuff trying to hang on to the showbiz. If the music business and entertainment business ended tomorrow, there would still be hip hop. Why? We're going to take that shit back to the block party and to the park. I always tell the kids now, you don't want to be in, take your little iPhone. At least you ain't got to carry around 2 turntables, a mixer, crate of records, amplifiers, and speakers in a band doing work to set up the sound system. Take this, get a couple of amps and some giant speakers, plug it in some Wi-Fi, and turn that shit up in the park. For us, it was, we didn't have to ask for permission to exist and be creative.
I see a lot of what you're saying, especially about like being, your authentic self and making sure people see that version of yourself versus your material items and things like that.
Right.
I think a lot about where business cultures went and where entrepreneurs have went, where entrepreneurs, they had to have the private jets and they had to have all of these things, the Donald Trump of the 80s and the 90s and all of that. Yeah. Take what you just said. And then I look at like the entrepreneurs of this generation, and there's obviously like exceptions like the Elon Musks of the world and all that stuff. But People are very much about, they want a personal brand, but they want it authentic. I feel like all the things we use daily, whether it's in tech, in products, a lot of these guys are just very much about keeping the product authentic and keeping their brands like great, but nobody's trying to be a rock star. They just want to be. You look at like Twitter with Jack Dorsey, like people know who he is, but when you Google him, you're seeing humanitarian efforts. I mean, that guy could buy every jet in the world. But he's not. I love that.
Yeah. Those are the true creators. I was just doing an interview the other day. You have creators, you have innovators, right? But then you have duplicators and imitators and replicators. But that just stems from people saying, like, hip hop now has become easy. Anybody in the world could have a hit hip hop record. Why? Put on a beat that sounds like Little Babies, and then you ain't even got to write a song. You could just say something over and over and over to fit into that mode. So now, whether it's entertainment, whether it's music, whether it's products and stuff like that, unless you're coming with something that you're passionate about, you won't have a powerful longevity existence. You can be like, yo, remember that song from 3 years ago?
And you always have to say from 3 years ago.
And that's it, right? As opposed to, yo, you remember that song? That's the difference. Yo, that dude, man, 5 years ago, he had the biggest record in the world. But now there's another guy in this time and day with the same thing that he had. We're going to talk about Dear Mama and Brenda Had a Baby forever.
Yeah.
But it's like this. Let me put it like this. This was 20 years ago. I was trying to tell people the difference between entertainment, show business, artistic integrity, creativity, and imitation and duplication and all of that. Here's a perfect example of what it is. And you can't knock anything that's going on, because if it's there to do, somebody got to do it. I never thought hip hop would get hit, because hip hop always had its own thing that dictates the way people talk, walk, drive, what they listen to, how they act, what they eat, what they drink, and what they smoke, as well as rock and roll, because it's all rock and roll. All of this stuff we're doing is the blues anyway.
Right.
You know, tits and ass, drug dealing, shooting, gang banging, murder, crime. It's no different from classic rock, folk rock to heavy metal and grunge rock. It's all the same things. But you got Britney Spears. Britney Spears is huge, right? Commercially huge. But Britney needs somebody to dress her. She needs somebody to write the songs. She needs somebody to fuck with the voice machine thing.
Oh, the auto-tune?
The auto-tune, to tune her. She needs somebody to show her how to dance. She needs somebody to put the whole world together, and then she just get in and do the two-step. But on the other hand, you got Sheryl Crow. Sheryl Crow don't need, no matter of fact, Sheryl Crow don't even need a big production. You could put Sheryl Crow in Madison Square Garden with an acoustic guitar, and she'll sit there and she'll perform for 3 hours, and you'll go home. That's the amazing thing. We never thought hip-hop would do that, because hip-hop now is in this commercial music industry. They can put the beat there, set up everything, and all the guy got to do is just get it and fit in. That's why groups went away.
Yeah.
Run DMC, we made the DJ relevant in hip-hop. The truth be told, these guys are rapping now, but they're not really doing hip-hop. Why they'll say that? Hip-hop means there's a DJ behind the rapper performing while he's rapping, not pushing a button and standing there, not pushing the playback. That's not a hip-hop. That's just a guy rapping the music, if you understand what I'm saying. You take that to whether it's a cook, whether it's a painter, baker, movie maker, those guys stand out because they're just trying to make a good movie. They can make a movie about hip-hop, but it's so good, you forget it's a hip-hop movie because it's a good movie. We were just making records. Walk This Way wasn't us making rock hip-hop. We was just making records, but we was using rock and roll. We was using rock music.
Because that was one of the illest breaks of all time, and you guys were probably rapping on that in the parks for years without even knowing what it was.
It wasn't a new thing. It wasn't so... Everything that's authentic, everything that has integrity, everything that's original will always exist. Now, that being said, anything that is culturally relevant to a culture, people, place, a race of people, a religion, I don't care what it is, anything that is culturally relevant to a group of people becomes diluted, polluted, and destroyed once it's commercialized.
Sure.
So it's up to the people of that culture to make sure the number one thing, all this can come along. We ain't going to hate or celebrate it, talk about it, let it exist. And the perfect example is this. Let's talk about go-go music in DC. It's still number one. We love you, Jay-Z. We love you, Run. We love you, Eminem, and this and that, but they won't let it die. But the success of hip-hop and money and all of that, another people, New York, done let our representation of hip-hop die. It's not that we can't coexist with the Dirty South. It's just that the Dirty South is doing their dominant thing right now. We just didn't live up to our expectation of who we are. We started changing to fit their mold, and that's across the globe. Hip-hop across the states used to be different. In Atlanta, they did what they did in Atlanta. We did what we did in New York. Philly did what they did in Philly. Detroit did what they did in Detroit. The Ghetto Boys did what they did, and LA did what they did. Now, when you listen to hip-hop, it's all the same records.
It is. I think about that a lot just as a DJ, too, like playing. When people are like, yo, I want to hear some New York shit. And I'm like, oh, like, you know, because in my mind, it defaults to the more traditional sound and not just artists geographically born here. But one thing I thought was really interesting when you look at like lineage of cultures versus like you talk about New York, most current New York hip hop has very few references to the past and the history of it. You know, there are exceptions, and there's obviously the guys that do intentionally sound like that. And then there's the guys like French Montana who have done a great job pulling the 90s and updating it, bringing all these samples forward.
Yeah.
But when I listen to most, to this day, contemporary West Coast hip hop, that's of an upper tempo BPM, like a 90 and on. I mean, we're going super nerdy on this.
Yeah.
You could feel the class. You could feel elements of the classic. You could hear the Battle Cat sound, the Dre sound, the DJ Quick sound when you listen to YG or you listen to Ty Dolla $ign. And it sounds new. It sounds fresh. It definitely sounds current. But you could feel where they're from. And you're right. I don't think for most New York stuff, unless they're retroactively trying to like force feed a golden era, like, you know.
And you don't have to do
like
that. Right. You don't have to do that. Just where you at right now in your life, where you coming from and where you want to go. You know what I'm saying? That don't exist no more. Now, everybody's trying to fit into that mold. The kids across this nation are rapping all the same.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Dude, listen, my son is 5, and he's like, I catch him like freestyling to like, not like, he doesn't know that he's freestyling. He doesn't know freestyling. He is, and he's not even probably using words, but I find him gravitating towards more like 90s stuff, which surprises me.
Really? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm like, I'm trying to like nurture that, but I also like as a DJ, like I still love everything and I love playing everything. But I do find it interesting. Like, I don't know if the SP1200 goes into your DNA and comes out through your sperm and comes out as another human.
It's a generationally transmuted. It's
He's like an alien, right?
Yeah. But I mean, you know, right now, the thing about the spontaneity of creativity is at its highest peak right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons of why you're creating that's missing. Now, what I mean by that is it's okay to say, yo, I want to play basketball to get money. Or I want to rap to get money. You know what? I want to sell drugs to get money. But to me, that's all the same thing. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to do hip-hop because hip-hop and the culture that I love, the only time I saw legitimate, legal, smart, nerdy, geeky, educated, non-criminal people that were badass was in the comic books.
Yeah.
I didn't see it represented in my culture. And it wasn't being represented in my culture like it was something wrong with it.
Right.
The only thing I had when I was a kid was my comic books, where I could look at Tony Starks and say, wow, he's smart, he's educated, he's a genius, and he's Iron Man. I could look at Peter Parker, who lived in Queens.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
He was your local hero.
Right. And he was young and he was awkward and he was trying to figure out Mary Jane and Gwen. So he was just messing up at work. I saw myself in it, but he was a genius.
The last interview I did, you'll love this one. I interviewed Axel Alonso, formerly of Marvel.
Man.
I know.
Yes.
And so we got super nerdy hip hop on it. I told him, and I'll tell you, but it's crazy thinking about how you just said the same thing about Peter Parker from the Queens aspect, because I've always thought of Peter Parker as a quintessential New York hero, but I forgot that he was like, I mean, I knew he was in Queens, but I never thought about how that impacted Queens kids to grow up. So my son's named Miles, and I named
Right.
him Miles after Miles Morales,
Morales.
the new Spider-Man, who's a mixed
Yep.
kid from Brooklyn, and my
Yep.
kid is a mixed kid from Brooklyn. It's crazy to hear somebody reference that back
Because
of Queen.
But you gotta understand what's going on here. Make believe is real. You in that corny make believe stuff. Yep. Look at the words. Make the world believe it's real. So here I am. Only cool people around me is drug dealers and pimps and Shaft and Superfly and the blaxploitation. And in my real life, it's the guys that's doing the stick up, selling drugs, robbing houses, not the guys getting hundreds on that test, not the guys that don't play hooky, not the guys that got to be in the house when their mother says, "You see that street light? Come on, you have your." What the hell? But we exist. So there was nothing for us except our imagination. And the only time I saw people like me who were badass was in these comic books. But hip hop changed all that for me.
Yeah. Every rapper has said, that's the one thing I like as you research you guys, it's like they were superheroes.
That's because we were the face of hip hop. Like we came right at the time when albums first came out, when hip hop got on MTV. So we were looking like y'all, acting like y'all, and talking like y'all. Because if you look at the early hip hop was message records, how fucked up everything was. Until Africa Bambaataa and the Zulu Nation made Planet Rock saying, okay, it's effed up in the world, but here's a vision of a world that we know exists. See, hip hop said, here's what it is, and we changed the world.
Yeah.
We created Planet Rocks everywhere. We created Planet Rock here in New York City, and it spread down south. And it spread to the West Coast. It spread to Japan. It spread to Germany. But for me, that didn't exist when I was little. And the music that I grew up to wasn't my music neither. It was my mother's music. That's when my mother and father was still young. Al Green, Marvin Gaye, James Brown, Aretha Franklin. My mother and father was still in their 30s and 40s. So that was their music. I was a little kid. All I had was my comic books, my kung fu, like shout out to Wu-Tang. We had these dreams of super being and having a presence. Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is a god in hip hop. Bruce Lee wasn't Chinese. That motherfucker was hip hop. You know what I'm saying? But we didn't have no physical manifestations of self for us. So for me, hip hop comes over the bridge, and I'm wondering, who is this dude Melly Mel? Who is this dude Mo Deep? Who is the Cold Crush Floor? Who is Grandmaster Caz? Look at the break dancers. They got on these red, yellow, and green and light blue suits. They got on these fly sneakers, these Adidas and colorful. They looked like Spider-Man, and they spun on their heads. The graffiti artists took the comic books off the page and put it up on the trains in the walls of New York City. So it started to manifest itself in our real lives. So when I got into hip hop, I was like, okay, if this dude's going to rhyme about what it's like in his neighborhood, and he's going to tell his story about him going to jail with that attitude, I'm going to tell my story about not going to jail with that attitude. So it resonated. The gangsters loved Run DMC. The gangbangers loved Run DMC. The street stuff was also the nerdy kids. So people saw themselves in us. And then Chuck D said we was the group that came along and created the good problem that elevated all of this hip hop. In the beginning, the same way hip hop is now, everybody sounds alike. It was like that in the beginning. Every record was a message record. Life in the ghetto, growing up in the ghetto. All the records sounded very disco-y. Hip hop to hip, we telling our little stories. Me and Run said, and everybody was sampling the same music. Everybody was sampling the disco, funk, and R&B records because when we came into the show business, we didn't come in and do what we was doing in the parks. We said, okay, what's the number one R&B record on the radio? Right, Good Times. All right, let's sample that and rap to that so we could be accepted. So me and Run, we came along and said, you know what? We're just going to make a beat jam. We're going to make a beat that goes boom, tet, 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 tet. Just going to be a beat, no music, and we're going to rap. It's not even going to have a chorus on it. And when we dropped Sucker MCs, that made Tribe Called Quest know they could be what they wanted to be. Nowadays, everybody's rapping alike. All of these little this and young this and all that, all their music sounds the same, except for few exceptions like a Kendrick Lamar, a Chance the Rapper, or a J. Cole. But in our era, we all lived 5 minutes from each other, but none of us sounded alike. Run DMC, 5 minutes from me on Hollis Avenue, Run DMC. 5 minutes from me, Farmers Boulevard, LL. 5 minutes from LL on Linden, Tribe Called Quest. 5 minutes from Tribe Called Quest, Salt and Pepper.
Wow.
About 10 minutes from us, a group called Public Enemy. Down the block from Public Enemy was De La Soul.
What you're referencing to me is just different pinnacles of the highest level of creativity. And you mentioned something earlier where you were saying we're all creators. What advice would you give to people? I mean, you've been creative now for decades and decades. Most people would kill to have the level of creativity for a day, you know? So what advice would you give to people to, like, how have you maintained your creativity all these years?
That's a real good. I don't know.
It's just in you?
Like, my advice is just look at what everybody's doing and do something different. But a lot of people don't want that. They want it. So for me to be successful right now, I got to make a song that's like Little Babies. But also on another end of the spectrum, I got to make a song that's going to be nothing like Little Babies, that's going to bust Little Babies' ass. See, nobody thinks like that. I tell my son this. You love Lil Wayne, you love Drake. If your record drop and you go on that stage, will you put the fear of God in Lil Wayne and Drake? He goes, huh? I want them to like me. I said, they will like you if you can do that. He want to be, look at Lil Wayne, I got a song like you. No, when we came along, yo, we got to fucking bust these motherfuckers' ass. We got to get noticed. So we looked at what everybody's doing and we said, yo, it wasn't a genius thing. It was like, and it's got to be a part of your personality. I grew up loving classic rock and folk rock. I grew up loving Led Zeppelin, Joni Mitchell, Harry Chapin, Jim Croce, John Denver shit, soft shit. You know what I'm saying? So when I came in, I was like, we're going to make a record that's going to be big like Billy Squire's Big Beat. So we did rock box. And we just going to rhyme. And that was just, it's what we wanted to do. Now, at the time, we probably could have still been successful if we either came in and said, let's do a record like The Message. We did It's Like That. But the only thing that was different from The Message, It's Like That was Planet Rock and The Message together. It was, broken glass everywhere and it could be better. Me and Run just said, yo, let's put those two ideas together. So it was always doing something that nobody was doing. Nobody wants to look at and say, what is these guys? It's the same thing with products. I'm getting ready to start a cookie company. It's going to be called Darryl Makes Cookies, DMC.
Love it.
Makes sense. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's going to be Darryl.
Wait, but how do you eat cookies and stay so fit? I need that secret.
Right. I eat so much junk food that it forces me to go to the gym.
There you go. And it's that's the secret, motivation. Ladies and gentlemen. That's the secret.
People don't exercise because it's a lack of motivation. For me, I want the cheesecake, I want the cookies and cream ice cream, I want the rice pudding, and I want the oatmeal chocolate chip and sugar cookies. I can have that. But that means tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., I got to be in that gym. If I didn't eat that, I wouldn't go to the gym as much as I do. And that's a great question, Mick. It's all about what motivates you. In this day and age, money motivates everybody. Money motivates everybody, but that's changing. Psychologically, it's changing. Last week, I read somewhere, they took a poll and they asked people, how much money do you think you need to be rich? People used to say like $3 million. Now people say, oh, give me $1 million. Because now people are knowing I don't need that Gucci shit. I don't need the Louis Vuitton. You know what I'm saying? I could get the fucking Prius. All I got to do is get from my house to where I need to be to exist and be me. So the mentality is changing. We wished we had all this stuff and it came true. If you listen to Rappers Delight, I got a color TV so I can see the Knicks play basketball, checkbooks, credit cards, more money. The rappers in the 80s rapped about shit we wish we had.
Right.
We woke it into existence. We presented something. I don't get it. Hopefully you hear me and you get it. And now we got that. But now that everybody got it, what's going on? It's not that hip hop sucks. People say, I don't want hip hop to be like it used to be. I want it to be better than it used to be because it can be.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Nobody says that. I don't want New York to sound like it sounded in the 90s. I want you to fucking bust Biggie's ass. Like, make some music. Use a violin and some bongos and do that. Don't just make a record so these labels can sign you. But that being said, the reason why I can't knock anybody for doing that, because that's not what I did. Like, I love a lot of these beats right now. The only thing that disappoints me is that's all that can come out your mouth. You know what I'm saying? We made those heavy 808 Southern beats. The 808, we dominated. If you listen to Dumb Girl, Together Forever, the 808, the Lynn drum machine, all of the sounds that the South is doing, we originated that. And if we didn't do it, Mantronics did. But it's what you do with it. So It's like me. I want to make these cookies now. I don't want to make cookies to be rich. I want to make cookies because I like cookies and it's going to bring a smile to people's faces.
Oh, I love that. That's cool.
That's my tagline. You know what I'm saying? And if I make some money, that's cool. But if somebody bite my cookies and love the packaging because it's me, that's my purpose and motivation. So when you look at the early guys, what I was trying to say earlier, when Run DMC came out, it went from Run DMC to LL to PE to Big Daddy Kane to Stetson Sonic to Ghetto Boys to Dre to Ice Cube. Like it just grew. And all of those names, Coogee Rap and Polo, Big Daddy Kane, you can put us all in a room and we all from the same place, but we bring in something so diverse and unique, which makes everything so beautiful. You know what I'm saying?
Man, it just makes me want to go back and listen to all that stuff and,
It's-
just like revisit all those chambers because I love
but
that.
Mick, it's superhero stuff. The reason why DC is incredible because you got Batman, Superman, Flash, Green Lantern, Cyborg, and Wonder Woman. You ain't got a 10 Batman. It will get bored. See, the problem with our music is this. When it's so similar, something that becomes monotonous becomes boring. Like nowadays, it's like, oh, here's another rapper. Mumble rap is great. I was speaking at a high school in the Bronx, and you got to understand, I'm 56 years old. So these kids, their thing is not to be connected with. If I like something of theirs, they're going to go change up everything. Because from the rock and roll generation, the young people make music to get the adults mad.
Counterculture always.
Right. But the unique connecting thing, creatively, I don't care if it's toothpaste, I don't care if it's an iPhone, the unique connecting thing of creativity is this. There's no such thing as a generation gap. No, it's an information gap. Hip hop was so powerful because the young G's and the OGs communicated. So nothing was never old. So now these kids is looking at me like, I was at a gas station and this young kid came up to me, young white kid came up to me. He was like, oh, shoot. He was excited. Oh, my God. And he said this to me, you used to be Run DMC. I was like, oh.
Wow. Wow.
You don't walk up to
That's
Bruce
wild.
Springsteen, right? But see, that's where they're at. You don't walk up to Bruce Springsteen and go, yo, Bruce, you used to be. No, you're Bruce Springsteen from the day.
What did you say to that?
I said, I got to start making some more records. Because at the time, this was before Jay died.
Oh, wow. Okay. So this isn't recently. This is,
this is like way back then. The generation gap, there's no such thing as that. It's an information gap. The young G's and the OGs got to realize something. What they're doing now is valuable to us, and what we're doing now is valuable to them. Here's why our records were so powerful. We wasn't just touching our generation. I wasn't making raps just to impress my 21-year-old buddy. I wanted the educators, the journalists, the professors, the lawmakers, anybody in places of power to look at me and say, young man, you're doing from my creativity. I don't care if my boy DMC got 16 bars. I wanted to make dynamic music. I didn't care about just having my hip hop people love me. I wanted Elvis Presley's fans to say, yo. But you got to understand, we were young people. That was our vision. Our vision wasn't to create all this wealth because we are the wealth that's going to be created anyway. Because we left all that money out on the table, it became commercialized and it didn't go where it went where it should went, but it didn't go everywhere that it should have. So from a creative standpoint, you can't be mad at Burger King trying to beat McDonald's. They're not going to beat McDonald's. McDonald's got the Big Mac. Burger King got the Whopper.
Right.
They got the King. They got Ronald McDonald. So all of these diverse presentations allow our people, and what I mean by people, not just in the beginning, it was just, hip hop was black ghetto music, because it was. But why was that? See, people don't know this. Hip hop came out of the disco era. And the disco era to us young people was, wow, they go to Studio 54. They got Bentleys and Rolls Royces and fur coats and sex and drugs and money. Remember, in the 70s at Studio 54, Hollywood was coming from California to party in New York City at Studio 54 because every time you turned the TV on, every time you turned the news on, every time you picked up a newspaper, it was about the who's who at Studio 54.
Right.
All the Bill Gateses, and all the Jimmy Iovine's and all the Tom Brady's, all the athletes, CEOs, wealthy people, actors, actresses, and entertainers were hanging out at Studio 54. People thought New York was heaven. Because when you saw Studio 54, people always ask me, D, what do you think about hip hop in this day and age? I go, it's disco. And they go, what do you mean disco? Look at hip hop. It's bling and mansions and champagne. The same thing it was in the 70s. That's why I say there's no generation gap. Kids don't know I was your age once. And everything that you're going through was the same when I was young. I'm just a survivor, motherfucker. I'm not in jail. I didn't get killed and I didn't OD. These kids don't want to know that. They're going to be where I am one day. And hopefully somebody's going to want to sit down with them and talk about what they did in 2020. But I don't think a majority of these groups in 10 years, you're not going to want to sit down with, I ain't going to say no names and ask them, what are you doing now? Because what they did was done with it. So people was coming to Studio 54 thinking it was heaven. I mean, the who's who in the world. People were coming from Arabia. They were coming from Germany. They were coming from the UK to party with all the disco and the entertainers in Studio 54. It took a group of young brothers and sisters from the Bronx music to tell the world, broken glass everywhere. People pissing on the station. No, they just don't care. I can't. And the message came out and shocked the world. And everybody realized, yo, New York ain't heaven. New York is just like Compton. Compton is just like Charlotte, North Carolina. So everybody saw what they thought was different. They realized it was the same. So when we came in with making our records, I'm not only talking to the kid in Queens. I'm talking to that kid in South Carolina. I'm talking to that kid in Georgia. I'm talking to that kid in Russia. Because in Russia, there's poverty. In Russia, there's peer pressure. In Russia, there's cartoons. In Russia, there's weed. In Russia, there's girlfriends. In Russia, there's I hate my mother. I love my teeth. All of that. So hip-hop was a universal representation that was produced, created, and presented universally. That little kid in Japan could identify with Run DMC with those fly-ass Adidas on. And that's what it is. And a little kid the other day was like, DMC, you over. And I said, thank you, man. And he was like, huh? I said, thank you for telling me that I'm over. And he was trying to dish. Y'all used to be, y'all old school. Old school is over. I said, yeah, old school is over. Matter of fact, son, I just came back over from UK last week. I'm getting ready to go over to Moscow next week. And in a couple of weeks, I'm flying over to Singapore to do a show. See, they don't think we're relevant because we're not on MTV every minute. We're not on the radio anymore. We're not on Instagram anymore. I do 365 shows a year.
Wow.
The only time I say I won't work is on Christmas.
I just want to draw attention because I think you said it's not a generation gap. It's an information gap. And I just going to draw extra attention to that because I just think people can learn so much from that statement.
If we talk at the end of our conversation, when we look in each other's eyes, both of us, young and old, fat, tall, short, can walk out that room and change something. All the problems that we get, I don't want to wait another 400 years for these racial things to go away. Somebody once told me, if Martians come to this planet and try to figure us out right now, they won't know nothing. Why? Because everybody's so busy here. Nobody's communicating. What's important about this is this. This is all information. All right, after looking at it for 12 hours, let's put the shit down and say, yo, what touched you? Here's what touched me. Then we can go out and create something. What I mean by create something, it doesn't have to be something that's physical that you sell. We can go change the school system. We can tomorrow go change the way food operates. We change the way people wear their clothes. We change the way commercials are done. Everything has this hip-hop thing because we were the coolest. But then at the same time, they're going to make a joke about us. That's because we're not communicating. Nobody's talking anymore. When I was little, I used to sit there and listen to the OGs. And what I mean by the generation gap is this, Mick, to give you a better idea of it. You got an individual, 12 years old, right, who is looking at everybody 13 to 35 like they're fools. Why? Because everybody, let's say 18 to 25, is looking, talking, and acting like this 12-year-old guy just to be cool to people, as opposed to the 18-year-old guy doing like what he's doing at 18, so that little 12-year-old can take something from the 18-year-old kid.
Right.
When I was 15 years old, I looked up to my brother and my cousins who were 18 and older. So when I got on a record, I'm listening to John Lennon. I'm listening to John Fogerty. You know what I'm saying? I'm listening to Lou Reed. I'm listening to Marvin Gaye. I'm listening to Al Green. I'm listening to Stevie Wonder. So this is in me at 12 years old. So now I get on a microphone at 18 years old. I'm giving these kids who are 12 and younger all of this elder knowledge. So if it's a kid that's 9 years old, here's me at 18 giving all this energy. When that 9-year-old kid becomes 12, he's highly elevated.
Yeah.
See what I mean by that? Look on social media. You got grown-ups acting immature. I'm not talking about having fun. You let loose at the party. But they're doing their presentations with this immature presentation. So the young kid, 12 years old, is looking at a guy 21 years old saying, I got to listen to this fool. And he's right. For us, we would sit there and listen. And even the gangsters, if the gangsters saw that you had potential to go somewhere, they would tell you, I know you had dudes tell you this, Mick, man, you need to get off this corner, man. You going places. That one gangster, you don't need to be up here on this corner. This ain't for you. They told us that all the time. You know what I'm saying? Because they saw us. That was here's a little lesson. The young people think that old people are old. I want young people to understand old people is experience. You can go to school for 4 years and not get in 1 hour what you could get from sitting down with an OG. That put you on your destiny and change. You want to be rich like Jay-Z and you want to do like Dr. Dre and stuff like that? Don't spend 4 years in school. Go talk to an OG on your corner.
I think that's why you see so many people take like a plane and go see Warren Buffett. They got to like earn their stripes to get that point. But to have 1 hour with that dude is worth 2 MBAs from an Ivy League school.
So what is that an example of? That's an example of something that's been with us for many years. Remember, I don't care if it's 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I don't care if it's a movie. I don't care if it's a cartoon. I don't care if it's Star Wars. I don't care if it's a superhero show. I don't care if it's a comedy. They show the guy climbing the mountain to go speak to the old man in the cave. So now I go into middle schools. I go into high schools and middle schools. And I don't go in there and talk about my music. I go in there and talk about how it was when I was a kid. And they looked at me and I said, yo, you would never thought that this straight A, nerdy geek, comic book reading, glasses wearing dude from suburban, lower middle class Hollis, Queens would not just become a rapper, but one of the most famous rappers of all times. Matter of fact, I said, I think of everybody else in their lane, they're not my worry. I didn't want to be the king of rap. I want to be the king of rock.
Right.
There is none higher. So, I know that song. My grandfather know that song. And then somebody, yo, it's true, it's cool. They achieved all of that. So if the kids could look at me and say, whoa, this dude never sold a drug. He never went to jail. He was never in a gang. And he was able to do that. What will I be able to do? And I think that was the appeal of it.
I like what you said. You know, you're showing people how you could take an authentic path and kind of like create the life that you want by actually being yourself, which is what you did. I feel like people also don't realize when you go on these paths, you know, people only see the beginning because they ever see the origin story of, like, if you will, to go back to the comic thing, and they see the end results, but they don't see all the problems that happen like in between. And so like, I'm a big Stoic philosophy person. I definitely believe obstacles make you stronger. I definitely believe all the bullshit that happens to you comes out better on the other end. For people who don't know, you had a voice issue in the 90s, right? When your voice went, I mean, I'm sure at the time it had to be treacherous and heartbreaking, but what are some of the biggest positives that, come out of that as you look back in hindsight?
You discover who you really are. Those obstacles are put there for you the more you do something, the better you get at it. You know what I'm saying? So the more you're struggling in life, the better you're going to get at life. So for me, here's what happened. I was just being Darryl, which brought my success to me.
Right.
But once the success came, the results of that success was just important to other people as it was to me. I was just writing rhymes to write rhymes and putting them out. I was like, oh, shoot, I got to hit a record. I got to hit a sold and this and that. Let's go do a tour. You're selling out the things. I didn't need to do none of those things. So I thought, once I got a hit record, people who wasn't doing it for my reason was like, yo, you need to have a hit record. You need to be on the charts. You need to be on the tour. You need. And I'm starting to fall out. Maybe I do need all of that. No, I just need to be happy. So I didn't know what it was. So make a long story short, after we got this big success of Run DMC, we find ourselves in a position of not being Run DMC, but trying to be Run DMC, trying to duplicate the success of Raising Hell. That's the wrong thing to do. Don't try to do, because you didn't know why that happened anyway. Just do what you're doing now so you can keep doing that forever.
Yeah.
So make a long story short, it just got to the point where I started trying to live up to other people's expectations, because I didn't have it. My expectation is done. I'm going to write this rhyme and I'm going to write it. If I get to say it on a record, cool. If not, I'll say it in front of my mirror every night for the rest of my life. It got to the point where, in order to deal with the pressures of other people's expectations, I started drinking a lot. I was drinking a case of Old English, the 40-ounce bottles. I was drinking one or two. I was drinking a case a day.
How many came in a case? 8?
12.
12. Wow.
12 40-ounce bottles.
So was that 480 ounces a day of liquor?
I put of malt liquor, bad stuff, the wrong stuff to be drinking. I put a refrigerator in the back of my monster truck so I didn't have to stop at the grocery stores. So make a long story short, I'm doing that. Plus I'm drinking Bacardi and Coke, screwdrivers, fuzzy navels, Hawaiians. This is all like 80s going into the early 90s. So, of course, your body ain't going to take all of that. So I get diagnosed with acute pancreatitis. I'm in a hospital dying for a month and a half. Fortunately, my pancreas wasn't scarred. It healed. For a month and a half, I couldn't take nothing orally. I had to get all my nutrients intravenously. Fortunately, this is miraculous. Your liver is okay, and your pancreas will heal. But we have some advice for you, young man. What is it? You have two choices. What do you mean? You could drink and die or not drink and live forever. So cold turkey, but it's not really cold turkey. It's me going, I want to drink real bad, but I don't want to kill myself. I want to drink real. So I'm going through that. So in the early 90s, we're still Run DMC, like untouchable because of our show and the hit records that we made. But in the 90s, hip hop is changing, right? But we're still respected. People still love us. We're the godfathers, we're the pioneers, you know what I'm saying? We're the reason why all of this has happened. But now you got De La Soul, Naughty by Nature, Pop, Big, Bad Boy, Tribe Called Quest. Everybody's illin'. Limp Bizkit and all, like, it's hip-hop and rock is illin' right now, but we still loved. So what happens for us? In 1993, Pete Rock, one of the greatest producers in hip-hop ever, if not the greatest. I mean, that's how good he is. Of Pete Rock and CL Smooth Spain, he produces the title track on our album in 93 called Down with the King.
Sampling the Hair soundtrack.
Sampling the Hair for anybody
My
out there
mom had that
listening.
record, and when I was growing up, I remember reading your liner notes, and I was like,
Right.
where do I go? I forget the artist. That was a song, I believe. She only had like 30 records,
She
and that was
had
one of
that
them.
record.
And I felt like I cracked the code.
Yep.
Because I had the cassette single of that, and then I
That's
had her vinyl of
crazy.
that, and I would play them, and she was like, what the fuck are you doing?
That's
And,
that.
but yeah.
That's another example of how generations are connected.
Yeah, for sure.
See, we overlook that
through
stuff.
information, because music is information, right?
Yeah, yep. So Pete Rock hates when I say this, but it's true. Down with the King did for Run DMC what people say Walk This Way did for Aerosmith. It brought us back. Remember in the 90s when we put Down with the King out? We did that video. Everybody showed up for the ride. Yep. Put us back on the road. The day that happened, we shot the video. I went home. And the next day that I woke up, I wanted to kill myself. I just woke up. I want to die. I don't want to live no more. Something ain't right. I didn't know what it was. So I did a soul check. I sat there and I was like, why am I feeling like this? Here I am returning to the glory.
Yeah.
Down with the King put us back on MTV, back on the radio, back on the charts, and back on the road. We was opening for Naughty by Nature. We was opening for Tribe Called Quest. We was opening for Pac and Biggie.
Wow.
In the 80s, we was getting the 80s payday with the Raising Hell tour and the 2 Fresh Fesses. We was selling out the Garden, the Coliseums. We selling out the Summit. We selling out the Spectrum in Philly. So we created the whole rock and roll aspect of hip hop. But now in the 90s, this thing called inflation. So in the 90s, we getting these $200,000 a show paydays. Like we getting what they get now in the 90s. Something in me was like, there's something wrong. I don't know what it is. So I examined my life. Son of Byford, brother of Al. Banner's my mother and runs my pal. It's McDaniels, not McDonald's. These rhymes are Darryl's. Those burgers are Ronald's. I ran down my family tree. My mother, my father, my brother, and me. I got Run, I got Jay, we got my Adidas, we did Walk This Way. Here it is, 1993. People say we built this city called hip hop. Why do I want to kill myself? I didn't know what it was. So I got to the point I couldn't live with that feeling anymore. And one day I decided to kill myself. But then I said, wait, if I leave today, people know the DMC, the Run DMC story. They know what me, Run, and Jay did, but nobody knows Darryl, the little kid from Queens who made all of this DMC stuff possible. So I said, before I kill myself, I got to write a book. But I only knew my birthday, May 31st, 1964, because I wanted to open up the book like, yo, what's up, world? I'm DMC from the groundbreaking rap group Run DMC. You know me. First to go gold, first to go platinum, first on the cover of Rolling Stone, first with the big sneaker deals. Everything that hip-hop is doing, they say it's because of me, Run and Jay. But I'm really just Darryl McDaniels from Hollis, Queens, New York. No different from anybody on the face of the earth. I was born May 31st, 1964. And then I realized, oh, I know my birthday, but no details. So I called my mom's up. I didn't say, Mom, I'm about to kill myself. She would have lost it. I said, Mom, I'm writing a book. I need to know some extra details about the day I was born just to make it more interesting to the reader. May 31st, 1964. How much did I weigh? She told me. What time I was born? She told me. What hospital? She told me. That's it, son. Yeah, that's it I need for now. I love you. I love you. I hung up the phone. An hour goes by. She calls back with my father. Now you got to understand, I'm ready to kill myself. I'm planning to jump off the George Washington Bridge, or I'm planning to jump off the roof when we go to Austria. I'm out of here because I was uncomfortable with this feeling. And the reason why I'm not afraid to tell the story, I'm the mighty DMC from Run DMC. Like, we big as fucking the Beatles. I didn't know where to go get help. I didn't know it was okay to go get help. I didn't know it was okay to talk to someone. I didn't know to tell. I didn't know that. I didn't know to keep it to myself. They call back after an hour. They go, we have something else to tell you. They hit me with, you was a month old when we brought you home and you're adopted. We love you, bye. Click.
Wow.
Imagine that. So I got these suicidal feelings, this anxiety. I'm lost in the soul. And then I just get hit with that I'm adopted. I was 35 years old. I had acute pancreatitis. I almost killed myself, drinking myself to death. So what's the first thing that I do? I don't know about going to a doctor. I didn't know about going to therapy. I didn't know about getting on the phone and calling for help. I didn't know about going to my mother and father. I didn't know about going to Run a J. I didn't know about going to my teacher I didn't know about going to the priest from the church. My two best friends become Jack Daniels and Jim Beam. And now I'm not supposed to be drinking. I don't reach for 40. I reach for Jack Daniels and Jim Beam. Subconsciously, because of all of this emotion, I found a way to kill myself without shooting and jumping. So make a long story short, from 93 to 2004, that was my whole life until I got confident enough to say, okay, I'm adopted. That means there's this other lady, this other man. That is the beginning of my story. If I'm going to investigate that, I got to get sober. So in 2004, I went to rehab to stop drinking. And what was good about rehab was it wasn't where they just clean you up and throw you back out into society. They clean you up and then they don't let you go because they make you sit there and deal with yourself. They knew what I was drinking, but they wanted to know why I was drinking. And I got diagnosed with suppressed emotions. What I was doing, remember when I said we got to the point where Run DMC became Run DMC?
Yes.
I was suppressing my emotions so I didn't have to cuss people out. I'm not making this record. I'm not going there. I don't want to work with that person, this and that. I was just going with the flow, which didn't vibe. Like you said, I'm a nice guy. Yeah. I don't want to cheat, lie, and steal, and cuss, and be mean, and be gangster. I don't want to do that. I just want to read a comic book. To not be my true self, which would make me successful, I was drinking all those 40s so be somebody else. So
Wow.
what happened was I went to rehab. I stopped drinking, and it was in rehab where I discovered therapy. And therapy was beautiful for me because it allowed DMC to sit there and have Darryl confront his ass. So when I got out of rehab and therapy, everything that I started doing when I was 12 years old, I started doing again.
Nice.
And in the midst of that, it was in 93, Down with the King came out. It was at the end of 93 where I lost my voice. And I went to Mariah Carey's doctor. I went to Lenny Kravitz's doctor. I went to the doctor in Hollywood that deals with all the singers and the opera stars. And they all looked at me and said, son, we don't know how to tell you this. There's nothing physically wrong with your throat. What's going on inside of you manifests itself physically.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I stopped drinking and started acting like 12-year-old Darryl sitting in this room reading comic books, listening to Cold Crush tapes, when my life just started. It wasn't like I had to go through a whole renaissance. It was like I started doing everything that I was doing for the reason that I was first doing it originally, and everything fell back in place. So those obstacles are put there so you can find out who you are.
It's interesting for you, at least. It seems like you are the person you always were. You were this.
Exactly.
You were the person that the 12-year-old identified with, wanted to be,
Right.
and it came back and
Let me blow your
full
mind.
circle.
We are all attracted to the thing for which we are put here for. And a lot of people get sidetracked. A lot of people think, I'm put here to be this billion-dollar movie star. No, that's just something that you was put here to do.
Yeah.
Why are you put here? A lot of people die prematurely before they discover the reason why. Even in the midst of all the pandemonium and struggle. Let me blow your mind. It wasn't until I met a young man named Riggs Morales.
Oh,
Riggs Morales.
Riggs is my guy.
Yeah, Riggs is my man. Riggs is my partner on a comic book. I met Riggs 3 years ago, and I was coming up to Warner Atlantic for a meeting about some music stuff. And I got to go meet Riggs, and Riggs was like, yo, I'm usually very professional. You know, Riggs, he's right on point. Like, he was down with Eminem and Shady Records for the rise of that great empire. So now he's up at Warner Atlantic doing his thing. And I go to meet with Riggs, and I sit down with him. And it's funny, Mick, he says the same thing everybody always says. I sit down with him, and just the first words out of his mouth, yo, DMC, you was like my superhero. The way you looked, the way you sounded, your rhymes and everything. And he just asked me, what was it like when you was a kid? And I was like, well, all I did was read, collect, and draw comic books. He said, comic books? I said, yep. Now, we thought we just had hip-hop in common. Nah, he said, me too. We sat there for 3 hours and we talked about comic books. So then Riggs goes, yo, you should do a comic book. And I go, no. And he says, why not? I said, I don't want to be another rapper thinking just because I got hit records, I could do everything.
Right.
Because I don't want my fellow geeks and nerds, like, you know, our culture is sacred. I don't want nobody saying, oh, DMC just doing a comic book to make for commercial reasons. He said, nah, dude, you're not doing it as a celebrity DMC. You're doing it as little Darryl McDaniels, the kid who loved comics. But then he said this to me, you could do with this comic book the same thing that you did with your music career for the last 30 years. I was like, what? Inspire, educate, motivate, and entertain. I was like, wow. Now, the reason why I bring this up to you, I went through all of this in my Run DMC career as Darryl, and then Darryl is able to make this DMC guy manifest itself. And then I hit this crazy time of pandemonium because I didn't know I wasn't being who I really was meant to be. So I had to go through alcoholism, depression, anxiety, OCD, and all of these other things just to find the real Darryl. Now, remember I said the only time that I saw people that looked like me was in the comic books?
Correct.
It was true my whole existence because Riggs goes, when Riggs found out my adoption story, he goes, Steve, you really are a superhero. I said, what you talking about? He said, don't you know most superheroes are adopted?
Yeah.
Peter Parker lost his parents. He was raised by Aunt May. Batman lost his parents. He was raised by Alfred. I saw myself in these guys. So what did I do? Just like the superheroes, I create this, Darryl McDaniels create this DMC off the ego. I actually became the superhero guy on the microphone that I like. And it goes real deep. I said, Riggs, I didn't know that I did this. I created the son of Byford because of the son of Odin. When Riggs told me that, son of Odin, He's the son of Odin. Odin is his father. He got a brother named Loki. He's from Asgard, and he got the hammer. I'm the son of Biford. My father's name is Biford. I got a brother named Alfred. I'm from Hollis, and I got a Mike. So I became son of Biford, brother of. It was all comic book stuff.
Wow.
So that's what I mean. I had to find. I was the
The
king
hip hop
of
Thor. I love it.
Exactly. So it was me having to find out not what I was. Rap is what I do. It's not who I am. So all of those similarities are in all of our lives. There's something deeper than you just wanting to be a DJ that allows you to choose that creative path that will be with you. I can run this DMC thing, devastating my controller, Darryl McDaniels, doing mine's cool, D's for doing it all of the time, M's for the rhymes, that are all mine, C's for cool ass can be. Why you wear those glasses? So I can see. But it still works without the glasses. I got contacts in now. Why you wear those contacts? So I can see. What do contacts? Darryl makes comics. Darryl makes cookies. Darryl makes cakes. Darryl makes clothes. Darryl makes cuisine. Like, I can run this to the depth. I don't need nothing else except who I am. So my message, and hip hop showed us you have everything necessary for you to be successful. So yeah. I'm not great. I'm not better than anybody out there. I'm just an example of what happens. And I always tell the kids this. I'm an example of what happens when you take advantage of every educational, or should I say every informational, creative, artistic opportunity. It's the arts that succeed where politics and religion fails. Pop culture.
One thing we do at the end of every episode is we go through speed round, 4 quick questions. It's my version of how you can make DMC can make cookies, comics, all that stuff. We take Mick and we spell it out and we do 4 questions, MICK.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm just like, that's the closest I'm going to get to be a rapper, man.
That's awesome.
I can't even take the credit for it. But M, music, one song that has significant meaning to you.
Angel by Sarah McLachlan. That record kept me from jumping. Wow. Up until the day that I wanted to jump, you gotta understand my voice was gone. My hip hop career was not as popular. I had all of these misconceptions. I heard this record, Angel. Angel said, yo, D, life may be really effed up right now, but if something this beautiful exists, it's good to be alive. That record kept me from jumping.
Wow.
I gotta add this.
Sure.
I didn't find out till 3 years ago that when I heard the record, it just sounded beautiful. The piano and Sarah's voice. In the arms of an angel, fly away. That record was a record about suicide. She wrote that record about the Smashing Pumpkins keyboard player who committed suicide. Wow. That's why I identified with it so much when I heard it. I heard Angel on the radio. I listened to it for 1 whole year. At the end of that year, I went to a party I didn't want to go to. She happened to be there. I tell her, yo, I listen to your song every day. It's the only thing that keeps me from jumping off the roof. I listen to it 24 hours, 7 days. She thought I was crazy. She says, thank you for telling me that, Darryl. Shakes my hand and walks away. 3 years go by. I find out that I'm adopted. I call her back up because I wanted to make a record. I was going to talk to orphans, adopted kids, and foster kids. I go to her house and we make this song. We did a remake of Harry Chapin's Cats in the Cradle. Instead of it being a song about a father who didn't have time for the kid, I made it about my mother and father, Biford Banner, who had time to raise me and gave me everything. At the end of that recording session, she turns to me and says, Darryl, there's something I need you to know. She says, I was adopted too, and I did not know that.
Wow.
Everybody got goosebumps.
Wow.
So that's Sarah McLachlan's, that's your M.
Wow. If we ranked season 1 of the MICK Show answers, no one's beating that. If you could fix one world problem, what would it be?
Wow. Hunger is a big problem. If I could fix one world problem that is most detrimental, something that I wish I could just do, it's stopping wars. Not from the point of why these people fighting. I want to stop the war because what it does to the people that has nothing to do with the war.
Right.
I don't mind y'all going to war, but if you're going to go to war, then you should take $1 trillion, give it to the people who have nothing to do with your stupid ass war. Go set them up someplace and that the town could be yours. You know what I'm saying? I'm worried about all those Palestinians. I'm worried about all of those Syrians. I'm worried about all the Bosnia Herzegovina. I'm not talking about stopping the wars from the two. There's always going to be war, but stopping the war because of what it does to the people who has nothing to do with it. That irks me to this day. We spend trillions of dollars on war. When the war happens, what makes me cry every time is what happens to the innocent people. That they just want to eat. They just want to read and learn and go to school. And it seems like nobody cares about that. We can go to war so good for whatever reasons. I assassinated your president. You saying this land is your land. Those people that don't want to go to war. There's people, the Muslim and the Christian, that just want to say hi and play in a band together. Those, if I could stop war from what it does to the people who have nothing to do with it, that's why I am a superhero. And I've been on this earth for 300,000 years. I'm still trying to figure that out.
I love it. Well, let me ask you, a superhero, Darryl. This is a good one for you. For C, the craziest risk, because you're a superhero, so I'm assuming you're going to have a better answer. The craziest risk you've ever taken, and was it worth it?
The craziest risk I've ever taken.
Leaping tall buildings with a single bound?
Yeah, the craziest risk I've ever taken was me coming into hip-hop after I wrote It's Like That with Run. Run was going to be a solo artist. He was the son of Curtis Blow. Like, Run been rapping since he was 12 years old. Russell just never let him make a record in the Rapper's Delight, the Breaks, the Message Planet Rock era, the early years of hip-hop. Run was billed as the son of Curtis Blow. It was always, Russell, let me make a record. Russell was like, no, Joey, you're too young. And Run was so persistent, he was like, okay, Joey, here's the deal. You show me a high school diploma, and I'll let you make a record. So Run was like, okay, I will remember this. So Run got the diploma. Russell was like, shit. So he had to let Joe go and make a record. Joe already had a plan to make these records. But then he remembered his friend Darryl had some good rhymes. And Run had told me, D, if I ever make a record, I'm putting you in my group. So we go into the studio, we make It's Like That. Now, It's Like That was like homework for me. D, write some rhymes about how the world was. And, I'm a whiz in history and social studies. So Runner just had It's Like That. So originally the record just went, It's Like That. And I was like, yo, it's missing something. So I remember Furious 5 did a song called The Message 2 called Survival. It's called Survival. And only the strong can survive. It's called Survival. And only the, so I was like, yo, it's got to go, It's Like That. And then we got to go, and that's the way it is. So we wrote It's Like That, and that's the way it is. Joe already had this song called Sucker MCs. That's why if you listen to Sucker MCs, he rhymes 3 times, and I come on for 30 seconds at the end of the record. So Run made the record. Then he goes, D, go in the booth and say your newest rhyme. And I was like, no, Joe, this is your record. Russell don't even want me. And Joe was like, yo, I don't want to be alone. I want you to be in the group. You got to prove to Russell that you can rap like better than everybody. So I go in the booth. He's like, I'm like, I don't know. You wrote this rhyme about sucking seeds, and this. Calm down. He just said, say your newest rhyme. So my newest rhyme was a rhyme I wrote about being accepted to St. John's University.
Oh.
So if you listen to Run's rhyme, it's sucker seeds, sad face clown. I'm not nowhere in that realm. He just says, D, say your favorite rhyme. So I rhyme about me making it to St. John's University and me liking to eat chicken and collard greens. Like, you don't get on a mic and start doing that. So I just say, he says, DMC, if you're ready, the people rocking steady. You're driving big cars, get your gas from getting in. I'm DMC, in the place to be. I go to St. John's University. And since kindergarten, I acquired knowledge. So, little short rhyme.
Straight to college, yeah.
It becomes one of the biggest rhymes ever. So my risk taking was I could have came on and been like, sucker MC, I hit you in your face and slam your body all over the place. I got a knife, I got a gun, and nothing. It would have never turned out good for me.
Wow.
So my biggest risk at all times in my career was being who I am.
I'm a very, very astute student of the culture. I did not know that. That's mind-blowing to hear that, like, that's how that verse and how that song. And just to think that if you didn't take that risk that day and you try to sound more like how Run sounded on that record, you try to sound more like
that's why people loved us, because Run was Run and I was me.
And so the last letter would be K. What's the key life lesson you'll always carry with you that somebody gave you, like somebody you admire, somebody you look up to, or it could just be anybody? What's the most important statement anybody ever gave you that you've taken with you throughout your whole life?
Your situation doesn't define who you are. So it may be a situation, but it doesn't define who you are, you do. I'll never forget that. And I share that I work a lot with foster kids and adopted kids, and they got all these emotions about being a foster kid is huge. Being adopted is huge.
Yeah.
That's your situation, but it doesn't define who you are. I had no idea that this little former foster kid who was adopted, who went to Catholic school, who grew up a geek and a nerd, reading, collecting, enjoying comic books, getting teased and picked on because he wore glasses. I had no idea that I could grow up to be the mighty king of rock. So if I could do that with all the situations and adversity that I faced, there's no telling what you can do with your situation.
Love that. So the one thing I really love about the trajectory of your career is you never really stop creating. You know, we talked about creativity a lot on this. You still have some amazing music coming out right now. You have the comics coming out, obviously the cookies. Like, well, tell us a little bit about the current stuff. So, you know, as we conclude here, people can go on Spotify and hear all this new stuff and just, oh, there we go. Oh man, I haven't even eaten today. That's fucked up, man.
I know.
I'm looking at that. That's amazing.
Yeah, what's getting ready to happen now? Like I said, we
love
just
the branding, by the way.
Oh, thank you. That's part of it too, like the whole DMC thing with the bars, so that you'll see my logo and you'll know that it's quality and integrity done very respectfully. The song that we have out now is a song called Fight. It's produced by Bumpy Knuckles, and it's basically about everything going on now with the racial situation and the police and the law and the legal. But it's not, I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining, and I'm not saying, remember when this happened. It's an enthusiastic cheerlead to people of all colors, using our color situation as an example, that everything necessary for us to make change exists. We have those capabilities and abilities, and it's up to us starting now. When you see my video, that second that it goes off is something that we're doing every day, 24 hours, 7 days a week, so that all injustice can cease. And I believe that the arts succeeds where politics and religion fails. So people say, why do you got Mick Jagger in there? Mick Jagger is a perfect example of how our government should operate. When you see Mick Jagger and B.B. King and Eric Clapton and Prince all up on stage playing together, that's an example of us proving what America really is. Mick Jagger and Keith Richards will get interviewed, and they will talk about all the black blues artists that influenced them. You know, Eric Clapton will walk in a room and be like, where's B.B. King when he was alive? They didn't need Madison Square Garden and money. Eric Clapton would say to B.B. King, yo, B.B. King, what you doing this weekend? B.B. King said, I'm playing down the block at the pub. Eric Clapton said, I'm running home to get my guitar. And we see this black man and this white man sitting in the pub in front of 20 people playing music. That's an example of how our government leaders should be. So fight is about us fighting, not just physically. It's using our intellect, it's using our creativity, and it's using the arts to accomplish what politics and religion can't. Anything that divides us should not be put front and center. And then on the fun tip, in about maybe 2 months or less, depending when we can shoot the video, Bumpy Knuckles produced DMC, Ice-T, and Chuck D of Public Enemy, featuring DJ Jazzy Jeff on the turntables. And the song is called Me and My Microphone. And all it is not us, remember this, remember me, I'm the one. No, it's not us. Bump puts the beat on, Chuck rhymes, I rhyme, Ice-T rhymes, and then Jazzy Jeff scratches, performs throughout the whole record. It's typical hip-hop that doesn't need anything except y'all to party while we do it. And then currently now, I'm in the process of working on DMC comic books, DMC 3.5 and DMC number 4. 3.5 will be probably in about 2 months it's going to drop, and we're going to drop this other song with the comic book. And then next year, for next year's New York City Comic Con, because I don't think it's going to happen this year. If it does, it's going to happen virtually. For next year's New York City Comic Con in October, I'm dropping DMC graphic novel number 4.
Nice.
So, and like you said, I got comic books, I got music, and I'm starting a cookie company because I love to eat cookies, and cookies is something that could make the whole world smile. I'm gonna have chocolate chip, oatmeal, and sugar cookies, and the company is called Darryl Makes Cookies.
And I've been super keto this month, but I'm telling you, man, when those cookies drop, I'm fucking my keto up. We're going straight with the sugar and the flour, the carbs. I'm not gonna look at the net carbs, the fiber, none of that. I want chocolate.
And then we have I'm gonna have chocolate. I have chocolate, sugar, and oatmeal. But every Christmas, I'm gonna put out a Christmas and Hollis edition sugar cookie. That's it right there.
I love it. That's awesome, man. Yeah, thank you. My best to you. You're your fam. That's it, man. Thank you.
Keep up the great works, man. DJs make the world go round.
Especially in a pandemic, right?
Like for real.
Looking to us for the joy.
Exactly.
On their phones and hopefully soon in person.
Exactly.
Ladies and gentlemen, this was the legendary DMC. We're so grateful for your presence today. This is the MICK Show, and we will be back soon with another episode. Thank you so much. And that was it for another episode of the MICK Show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We sincerely appreciate it. Please, please, please do us a favor. Wherever it is that you listen to your favorite podcast, please, please subscribe to the MICK Show. Like the MICK Show. Write a review for the MICK Show. Leave a star rating for the MICK Show. Whatever you can do helps. 5 stars would be amazing. 4 stars would be cool. 4.5. I was never an A+ student in school. I was like that B+ guy. So anything in that range, more than grateful for. Also, make sure you follow on social, Instagram @Mick, Twitter @IamMick. Let me know who you want to see on a future episode of The MICK Show so we can try to get them on for you. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in, and we will see you back here next week.